Okay, this is going to sound super weird, but I'm going to tell you why the Pelicans losing now is a good thing for the long term. And we have a Zion Williamson injury update, and it's not bad. It's a Friday episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Here with you on this Friday, a game day for the New Orleans Pelicans as they take on the San Antonio Spurs. And oh boy, do they need this win because they are losing a bunch on this homestand right now. But guess what? This is going to sound weird. It's actually a good thing. And I'm going to explain why in a second here. Plus, I'll give you an injury update on Zion Williamson and a couple of other reasons to be positive about this team and what feels like darkness and a crushing weight of, sadness going on right now. It's going to be coming up in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the number one Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join almost 10,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube and become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday. Let me know in the comments down below if you are. And let me know if you think losing right now is good. Hear me out and let me know what you think. So here's the crux of my argument with this. This stems from, me not knowing what exactly to talk about today. And so I put it out there on Twitter of what do y'all want to hear about? And at Forgiven776 responded to me with actually what was kind of like a joke of a question, but I kind of liked it where they say anything positive, talk about that. And one of the things I try and do on the show all the time is look at positivity with this team, right? There's always something interesting going on. There's always something that's going to matter for the future. So even in these times when they're losing games, there's something there that's interesting that you're going to want to know about that's going to make you kind of appreciate basketball or this team more. I mean that for any team, right? Losing games, there's always something to look forward to or something that's going to matter when you're doing the show and everything. Or just like being a fan of the team. So let's look at that with the Pelicans right now. Look, they're still in playoff contention, right? They're going to be at least in the play-in tournament. The very minimum, it's still not like it's not good. I'll agree with you there, but it's not a complete disaster of a season. But here's why I'm actually okay with them losing games now. And that's because you can't run from this happening. You can't run that certain things with this team aren't working, right? You look at the center position. It's a problem, and they don't have an answer to it. And that is something that is holding them back and has held them back at times this season. You can't ignore that. You can't entirely just re-sign Jonas Valanciunas and run things back. That's a good thing. We don't want them to run it back. Look at the Sacramento Kings in the Western Conference. Last year, they were the 3 seed. This year, they're worse than the Pelicans. They're in 8th right now. They're in the play-in tournament from the 3 seed. And they have basically the entire team that they had last year. They ran things back, and they got worse in the standings. You can't run things back. If you want to be competitive, you can't talk yourselves into, we had a tough first-round matchup, and we lost to the Warriors, and that's a shame. It was 7 games. Let's run it back and be competitive next year. Everyone else is stacking up and trying to be good. You need to do the same thing. You can't run from this anymore, right? It's basically, sometimes it takes failure. Sometimes you have to look at yourself in the mirror after failure and make changes, right? That's like the definition, in a sense, of hitting rock bottom. Now, I don't know if they're purely there. That would be missing the playoffs. They could have that happen. It's like, this is a horrible analogy. This is the one thing that came to me, and this is not something I've personally experienced, right? There's people who are like alcoholics and they need help. And sometimes you don't get help till you get that DUI, right? And you're staring at an arrest in the face. You might know you're an alcoholic. You might know you need help. And again, not a very good analogy here. So sometimes it just takes something kind of catastrophic like this to make you be like, I can't keep going on this way, right? That's a way to kind of look at it with the Pelicans. So losing now and not talking themselves into a flawed roster being better than it actually is, right? This goes to what I said earlier on in the year, that I don't think this team is truly as deep as what people are making it out to be. There's good role players here, but you lose one of your stars. It's not like you've just got someone waiting in the wings to replace him. So you can't run from this. You have to make changes this offseason. And the good news is they have the draft picks to do it. They could have 2 first-round picks in this upcoming draft, theirs and the Lakers. That Lakers pick, depending on where it falls, could be better than the Pelicans. Could be 2 lottery picks, could be 1, who knows, could be none. You can defer that. They have the assets to do something, though. And now you'll have more flexibility and more time to kind of figure out the right deal, because you don't have the trade deadline looming in February. So they now know, looking at this, that they can't run it back, that things have to be somewhat different. I don't want to say dramatically different, right? I don't think they're going to trade Zion or Brandon Ingram. More on that in a second here. But they're certainly going to address the center position and try and stop this from being a problem and something that's holding them back. They can't ignore it. They can't be like, oh, well, if we had Brandon Ingram, we would just be fine and we'll run it back with JV. Not with the way he's been used this year. Not with the way he's been used this year, right? You need another center. I don't think that was necessarily Gafford as the answer, but there's better options out there, and you're going to try, and believe me, they're going to at least try to do that, and I'd be willing to bet money that we will look at the starting center next year for New Orleans, and it's going to be a dramatically different situation than what they have this year. That's good. That's good. Don't talk yourself into this team being better than it truly is. People were kind of putting them on the fringe of title contention. I don't know about that. But now, no matter what you do in the playoffs, this end run here, you're like, yep, nope, we're not ready to, we're not where we thought we are, so we need to make changes. So go out and do it, right? And that is kind of the definition of accountability. We know we'll take accountability, which means we're going to trade someone, we're going to bring someone else in, maybe multiple people, and we're going to make some changes because we now see the flaws here and we can't just run it back. That is a good thing, and you're learning that now, and I'm glad that they're learning this now versus in the middle of next season when maybe they'd be back in the play-in tournament or something along those lines. So I do think in a weird way, it's good that they're losing games now. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I find that to be a positive. You can't run from this. There's no way. There's no way the front office can kind of talk themselves into this. That's a good thing because we don't want that. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments down below. But we're going to continue to be positive in today's show. I like this, right? So I'm going to give you some other reasons to be positive about the Pelicans this season. It's not all bad. I promise you. There's some very good things that we've seen that I believe are going to be important for the future. I'm going to tell you what those are. One is Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram. Coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Right now, though, I'm going to tell you about Robinhood because this episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood is the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial member SIPC is a registered broker-dealer. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen. Today and every day, we are here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. You want reasons to be optimistic? We've got it. You want reasons just to be a fan of the team? We cover that too. We'll get into playoff matchups. We'll get into, potentially in-season tournament matchups. We're going to get, not in-season tournament, play-in tournament matchups. All of those things we're going to cover here with maybe something special, including a live event. I'm actually going to go talk about that as soon as I'm done recording this. So stay tuned for a little bit more when it comes to that. So subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Become an everydayer. Listen Monday through Friday to Locked On Pelicans. So let's continue to be positive here. I like that, right? Let me know give me one positive. Look, you might think overall things are negative, but give me one positive that you're taking away so far from this season in the comments down below. Even if they miss the postseason, say they lose in the play-in tournament. It's bad. That would be a failure of a year. I agree with you, but it doesn't mean that everything's bad, right? Let me know what one positive thing you think is happening. Let me know what one negative if you want to go that direction too. So other positives to look at here. I think we've seen that Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson can kind of coexist. I don't think they are a perfect pairing by any means, but I think you've seen, particularly from that stellar play from Brandon Ingram, while Zion was kind of the number one option on the team, and they were going point Zion, being a secondary playmaker, secondary scorer, and that was really good. He's shown he's much more of a playmaker than I think we've ever seen from him at any point in this season. That pairs well with Zion Williamson, having a secondary playmaker there. They don't need a point guard. They need a point guard at times, but when you have Brandon Ingram and Zion on the court, you don't need one because they can handle the ball and create open shots for others. You need more shooters around them. They've discovered a shooter in Jordan Hawkins. We know Trey Murphy can be a shooter. It's about figuring out the center position. While yes, this season is a bit of a disappointment here. It could be a big disappointment. That remains to be seen. We know what they need to address. It's why I said it's a positive here. But Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson can coexist. With Brandon Ingram being extension eligible this offseason, and it's likely that they're going to give it to him, would be my guess, then we know they can coexist going forward if you make some other changes to the roster. That's big. Part of this year was figuring out, can BI and Zion coexist? They've also both played the most games basically of their career, I think. I think it's actually like they have played the most games of their careers here. And that's a really positive thing, right? Health. Zion has been healthy. More on Zion's health in the next segment. We have an injury update on his finger. Brandon Ingram has been healthy. Brandon Ingram has played 63 games. Zion Williamson has played 65. BI plays 2 more games if there's only 6 games left. He qualifies for postseason awards. Look, just health is good. We haven't always had that in New Orleans. They've been healthy this year. Maybe that means this season is a little bit more of a disappointment to not have a higher seed. You can say that. But the health is a positive. That is for sure. And that was a big question mark going into this season. So the fact that they've both played, and they both played well together enough as they figured things out as the season went on, that's a big positive for me on the season. Another positive is, look, the defense is good. This defense is good no matter who's out there on the court, which makes some of the decision-making by Willie Green to go so defensively a little more frustrating. They're good defensively with Jonas Valanciunas out there on the court, right? They're good defensively with Jordan Hawkins out there on the court, even if he's not good individually. Brandon Ingram has shown that he can be a good defender. Zion has shown that he can be an above average to good defender as well. Those are all really positive things. Those were big question marks about both of those players. And they've gone and done a really good job of that, of proving that wrong and helping this unit be pretty elite. Look at how they played the Milwaukee Bucks and what they were doing. Look at how they played the Miami Heat and a couple of these other teams. They have looked phenomenal on that side of the ball, no matter who has played games for them, no matter who has started games for them. They've had 11 different players start games this season, and they've been good defensively, right? Matt Ryan, only one, isn't a good defender. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl has started. He's not a good defender, but they've been good on defense, right? CJ is not known as a good defender. He started 60 games. Trey Murphy started 18. I don't think his defense has been particularly great, right? Jonas Valanciunas started more games than any other player, played in more games than any other player. And this team has remained a good defensive team. Think of what you want about Willie Green, but that does speak to something that he's doing correctly here and what the coaching staff is doing correctly here. Jaron Collins kind of being in charge of the defense for everything. So they've done a very good job of that, I think. And that, to me, is an impressive thing. Getting teams to be good defensively. And there have been times when, man, they look sharp. You hear the phrase defense on a string. So if one person moves, all the others have to kind of move, right? Because they're all connected. And they've been doing a very good job of that. They've been doing a very good job of communicating. Remember when JJ Redick was here and he called this team the quietest he's ever been on? They're not quiet when you hear him out there on the court communicating defensively and knowing where to be and how to disrupt things. Even some of the communication between plays of Herb Jones going to Zion and being like, let's blitz Damian Lillard on this possession, and it results in a turnover. I love that. It's fun. It's been fun talking about their defensive scheme and what they've done on that side of the ball this year. And the fact that they've done it 2 years straight under Willie Green says that's working, right? It's results. You're seeing them. That's a positive. That is a very positive thing here. And I am excited about that going forward. That means that whoever they trade for, maybe it's not a defensive-minded center, you can still have a good defense while elevating your offense too. It gives them more flexibility, I think, in the offseason with some of this. So overall, that is a big positive to me. The fact that they've won more games than they have last year and are in the running for near 50 wins, they're probably not going to hit that now. They would need to go 5-1 over these next 6 games, and that doesn't feel like it's going to happen. But they're better. They've improved every single year under Willie Green. He's not a perfect coach at all, right? He's not a perfect coach at all. And that needs to change, but that means you know, that goes to running it back, right? He can't take the same approach this year or next season if he's back, that he took this year. That's a good thing, knowing all of that. So all of those, I think, are positive. There's others, too, that I could really mention, right? You know, again, seeing the individual improvement from some of these guys. Seeing Herb Jones become the offensive threat, kind of, in terms of three-point shooting that he is. It's been great. He's shooting 42.2% on the season. That is an incredible number from someone who was not, you know, known as an offensive guy, but putting in the work, doing the work, improving his game to help this team is exactly what we have wanted to see. So overall, it's great. There's been a lot of positives this year and growth from players, and that's what we've wanted to see. Say what you want about CJ, but he's averaging 19 points on 15.5 shot attempts per game, taking over 8 threes per and making them at 41.3%. That's a real good number, along with almost 5 assists and 4 rebounds. There's a lot of talent here. You've just got to figure out the little things. Some of that's rotations, who you play, who's in the rotation. Some of that's the center position, but they're all things that are fixable. I don't look at this team and be like, well, they are just completely broken. You need to blow it up. Maybe eventually we'll get there, but we're certainly not there right now. That's a positive. That's a positive, I think, because I look at a couple other teams around the league and you're like, what are they doing? I don't feel that way about this team. I would tell you if they did. Lead to tons of show content for me to go down that road. But I'm not, because I don't think that. But Isaiah, I'm going to shoot you straight here on everything with Locked On Pelicans. So let me know what your positives are. Let me know in the comments down below. I think there's a bunch. Do you agree with the ones I said? Is there one that I'm missing? Probably a couple that I'm missing too. I'm curious. Or if you just want to be negative, go ahead and vent. That's okay too. This is a safe space. Let me know in the comments down below on YouTube. Coming up next, Zion Williamson injury update. Let's look at that, what it means for the next 6 games. Let's break that down coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Right now, though, I'm excited to tell you about Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports. From live games to highlights to in-depth analysis, Fire TV offers an amazing viewing experience with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick. You just plug it into your existing TV, and all of a sudden, you've got access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. So whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. And Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us here at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and conferences as well. Fire TV channels lets you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all in the latest world of sports, whether it's March Madness, the NBA, MLB, and a whole lot more. Not to mention they got news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on the Fire TV and Alexa devices. And if you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should have started using it. It's great. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Today's episode is also brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things further? I am. Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. There's the 2024 Nissan Rogue, which is perfect for city drives and great escapes. And with class exclusive Google built in, it's your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, Google Play Store are all built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. There's also the Nissan Pathfinder, has room for up to 8, expansive cargo capacity, and advanced available 4x4 capabilities. With 284 horsepower, it's a good number, and up to 6,000 pounds towing when adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. So take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. Maybe going to have a live event for y'all. I'm going to go finalize some of that in the next hour. So as you're listening to this, probably going to be in a meeting regarding all of that. Hopefully we'll have something for you early next week with all of that. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope to see y'all there. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to Locked On Pelicans. You want to know more about the team? We got you covered here. We're going to have everything covered in the offseason too. Draft, free agency, trades, all of that, coaching stuff, front office stuff, all of it. We cover it here. Locked On Pelicans. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. So we just went over the positives, right? I do think they exist. I do think they exist. Look, this team could lose every single game, and I would find interesting things to talk about with them, right? I've basically covered that, right? We had a 10-game losing streak last year, 2 years ago, whatever it was. And I still found things interesting. I just like basketball. If you're a fan of the Pelicans team, no matter what's going on, good or bad, we're going to find things to look forward to that make following this team a little bit more fun, a little bit more interesting with all of it. So we went over the positives. Let me know what your positives are down in the comments below. So Zion Williamson injury update. He didn't finish the game against the Orlando Magic, didn't play the final, basically 7.5 minutes, which was a little strange. And it turns out that he hurt his left middle finger blocking a shot on Jalen Suggs. It was a good block too. He gets up and then maybe re-aggravated it or something like that, going in for a dunk a little bit later. It's concerning, right? We've actually seen him shut down before because of injured fingers and things like that, because of some of the contact he makes gets put on him, right? That led to the David Griffin presser where he was calling it open season on Zion Williamson, which, while dramatic, he's not incorrect on some of this. Refs just don't give Zion a good whistle, and eventually, there will be injuries. There almost was with the Jalen Suggs thing where he kind of went at Zion's knees. It's a dangerous play, right? You got to keep that in mind. And so the NBA does need to protect some of these guys, and the refs are not doing at all a good job about that. So seeing Zion get that injured finger is worrisome because, PTSD is very real here with the Pelicans fan base, and he's missed some games because of things like that before. Said they got it checked out, no structural damage, no break or anything like that. So he's just listed as questionable for tonight's game against the San Antonio Spurs. This game's a little bit tougher than I think we would expect from San Antonio, given how bad they are, with Victor Wembanyama playing at a near all-NBA level. He's going to be in the running for Defensive Player of the Year, which means this is going to be a little bit harder to get a win against an 18-58 team. They are 40 games under 500. Oh, that is terrifying here. But they've picked up their form a little bit as of late. In the last 5, they're 3-2, which hasn't always been the case. But they have shut down Jeremy Sohan for the year, Devin Vassell for the year. So it's going to really come down to someone like Victor Wembanyama carrying this team or not. If you can kind of neutralize him and having a big body and Jonas Valanciunas being able to maybe be a little bit more physical with him on the offensive end and maybe even on the defensive end, even if he doesn't match up exactly height-wise with Wemby, who is just, as much of a unicorn as exists in the NBA, it could be good. This is a good test of, can you really make things work with Jonas Valanciunas going forward? So that's important here because Zion might not play. Listed as questionable. He's reached the 65 games threshold. That's kind of just symbolically important, right? This is a milestone for him in a sense, that he's never played this many games, that, he is eligible to make an all-NBA team right now. And that would be a tremendous honor. And I think of guys getting kind of hardware at the end of the year, or an award at the end of the year, it's going to be Herb Jones on hopefully should be first team all defense. And then Zion maybe making third team all NBA. That's really the only one that you would put him on. I don't know. That's a big thing to me. So hopefully he wants to play and continue to finish the season strong to kind of push for that All-NBA award. But we'll end up seeing if that's the case. I'm just happy that he's only listed as questionable and not ruled out because Brandon Ingram's still out. Jose Alvarado is still ruled out. But I think we kind of avoided what could have been a bigger concern for New Orleans. Imagine if this was something that was like season ending and he needed surgery or something like that, and he's left-handed. So that's concern there too. So you go into the play-in tournament maybe with or without Brandon Ingram, depending on what it is, and no Zion. And then again, the whole point of this is maybe to see Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram in the postseason. So him basically being listed as questionable more or less just day to day, ultimately I think is a win for New Orleans here and a good thing. That this injury and the luck they've had with injuries has not always been great. This one, about as good as it could be, all things considered. The only thing better would be like he's fine and he for sure will play. He's played through injury this year. He's shown a lot of toughness and things like that we haven't seen from him before. So I don't know if he'll play. I don't want to make a prediction on that necessarily because at the end of the season, who really knows with some of this stuff. He wants to win though. Like it would not shock me if he plays in this game and goes out and battles hard. That's the kind of person that Zion has been this year, which is a little bit different than years past. You really see how much he is dedicated to basketball, to his professional career, and wanting to go out and win. You've seen that from him this year. That's a positive, right? Like that's a huge positive. Would have liked this at the start of the year where he was struggling to find his way, but look, you got there eventually, and it probably means that barring some sort of injury here, he's going to carry this into the offseason no matter when the Pelican season ends and go into next year in better shape, in better condition, and have figured things out, and I'm excited for that. So lots of positives and things like that. So things are kind of looking up for the Pelicans here when it comes to that, and I'm excited for it. So that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans, this week of Locked On Pelicans, maybe a bonus show over the weekend. Thank you all so much for listening. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. I'll be back with y'all most likely on Monday to recap the weekend and get you set for basically the final week of the regular season. Got here before we know it. I'll see y'all next time.